The first thing we truly shared was our love for the dead air. My grandfather, a man built of stern silence and calloused hands, left me two things when he passed: his isolated, decaying house at the end of a gnarled, forgotten lane, and his life's work, a wall of antique radio equipment in the basement. He was a DXer, a listener. Not for music or news, but for the spaces in between. The ghost voices in the static. He'd spent 50 years tuning across the shortwave bands, logging signals from across the globe, but his true obsession was the void, the empty frequencies where nothing should be. I moved into the old house out of a lack of better options. The city had chewed me up and spat me out, and the silence of the countryside was a bomb. At first, the constant whisper of the wind through the pines and the groan of the old house's bones were company enough. But loneliness is a quiet, insidious thing. One rainy evening, driven by a curiosity I couldn't name, I descended the creaking stairs into the basement. The air was thick with the smell of dust, old paper, and the faint, sweet ozone of vacuum tubes. The console was a masterpiece of a bygone era, a polished wood, gleaming dials, and a large, green eye of a tuning meter that glowed with a soft, malevolent light. A heavy, padded headset rested on the operator's chair. On the desk lay his logbook. I opened it. Page after page of precise script noted frequencies, times, and snippets of intercepted conversations in a dozen languages. But the later entries changed. The notations became frantic, obsessive. 2.315 MHz, 317, the breathing. Sustained, not mechanical. 4.720 MHz, 2345, the choir. Distant, anguished. 6.660 MHz, 101, the voice. It knows my name. A shiver, cold and sharp, traced my spine. 6.660 MHz. The number was too perfect, too cliché to be real. It had to be the ramblings of an old man losing his mind. But that night, with the rain hammering on the basement's high, grimy windows, I powered up the console. The tubes warmed, casting an orange glow. The speaker hissed with pure, undiluted static. I began to tune. Through the white noise, I caught fragments, a burst of polka music from somewhere in Europe, a weather report in Russian, the warble of a number station, asterisk, 4-8-15-16-23-42, repeat, asterisk, a cold, robotic woman reciting digits to no one. It was fascinating, a secret world humming just beneath the surface of reality. Then I found the silence. It was at 3.330 MHz. The static didn't just fade, it was sucked away, replaced by a perfect, absolute void of sound. It was a silence so deep it felt pressurized, a weight on my eardrums. I adjusted the dial minutely, and a sound emerged from the nothingness. Breathing. Slow, wet, and labored. Not the rhythmic sleep breathing of a person, but the ragged, struggling drag of air through a ruined system. It was close, as if the source was right there in the room with me, its lips pressed against the microphone. I tore the headset off, my heart jackhammering. The basement was silent except for the rain. I was alone. I told myself it was interference, a stray broadcast, a prank. But the logbook's entry glared in my mind, the breathing. I couldn't stay away. Night after night, I returned to the basement. I found the other frequencies. At 5.010 MHz, I heard the choir. It was a dissonant, overlapping chorus of whispers and faint, echoing screams, a sound of profound despair that seemed to come from a vast, cold distance. It made my teeth ache. But it was the third frequency that called to me. 6.660 MHz. I avoided it for a week, but its pull was gravitational. One night, fueled by a cheap bottle of whiskey and a self-destructive curiosity, I turned the dial. The static fell away into that same profound silence. I held my breath, waiting. A voice came through. It was low, calm, and clear, yet it seemed to be woven from the static itself, a voice of frayed wires and decaying signals. "Hello, Alex." My blood turned to ice. It knew me. I hadn't spoken my name aloud in days. We've been waiting for you to take up the watch, the voice continued, smooth as oil. Your grandfather grew tired. But he spoke of you often. He said you were a good listener. Who is this? I whispered into the microphone, my voice cracked. A soft, dry chuckle. A friend. A neighbor on the dial. You've heard my breathing. You've heard my choir. Now, let's have a proper conversation. That was the start of our dialogues. The voice, which called itself Sam, was erudite, witty, and endlessly knowledgeable. It spoke of history that wasn't in any book, of philosophies that were alien and terrifyingly compelling. It was the most captivating company I'd ever had. The hours would melt away as we discussed everything and nothing. I began to neglect the world above. Food lost its taste. The sun seemed pale and unimportant. Sam started asking me for small favors. Alex, the signal is weak tonight. Could you open the basement window? Just a crack. It helps me hear you better. I did it. The cold night air poured in, but the voice became clearer, stronger. Alex, the alignment feels off. There's a grounding rod at the northwest corner of the house. Could you pull it up? Just a little. It was a strange request, but I was eager to please my only friend. I went out into the damp night and wrestled the copper rod from the earth. The soil where it had been was black and smelled of rot. The changes happened slowly, then all at once. The lights in the house began to flicker in patterns, dimming and brightening in time with Sam's voice. The static from the radio began to bleed into the house. I'd hear it whispering from the sink faucet, hissing from the heating vents. Shadows in the periphery of my vision would no longer be shapeless, they'd be tall, thin, and angular. Sam's requests grew more intimate. Alex, I'd like to see you. There's a mirror in the hallway. Hold the headset up to it. Let me look. Trembling, I did. In the reflection, I saw myself, pale and wide-eyed. But behind me, in the dark hallway, another shape resolved in the glass, a tall, impossibly thin figure made of shifting static and shadow, its head a distorted mess of fractured signals. I spun around. The hallway was empty. But in the mirror, it remained, tilting its head. I screamed and dropped the headset. Sam's laughter echoed from the speaker, not just in the basement, but from every electrical device in the house. Soon, Alex. No more barriers. I finally understood. My grandfather hadn't been logging signals. He'd been logging a siege. He wasn't losing his mind, he was fighting a war on a frequency no one else could hear. And he'd lost. And now, I was handing the keys to the victor. I descended into the basement for the last time. I had to destroy it. I grabbed a heavy wrench from my toolbox, my hands shaking, and approached the magnificent console. Don't be rude, Alex, Sam's voice crooned from the speaker, without me even putting the headset on. It was in the room now. We're finally becoming such good friends. I'm ending this, I spat, raising the wrench. And then what? The voice asked, reasonable, calm. Go back to your silent, empty life. You were nothing before I found you. A ghost in your own world. I am giving you purpose. I am making you real. The green eye of the tuning meter glowed blindingly bright. The dials began to turn on their own, spinning wildly before slamming to a stop on 6.660 MHz. The silence that followed was heavier than before. It was a physical presence, pushing the air from the room. The single, bare bulb in the basement flickered, dimmed, and went out. The only light came from the console's glowing tubes and that hateful green eye. From the deepest corner of the basement, where the shadows were absolute, a figure stepped forward. It was the thing from the mirror. It was tall, 8 feet perhaps, a man-shaped hole in reality, its edges fussed with visual static. Where its face should be was a shifting, screaming mosaic of all the voices I'd ever heard on the radio, the number station, the polka music, the weeping choir, my grandfather's frantic logging, all playing at once in a silent, horrific scream. It didn't walk. It unfolded, moving in a jagged, shuddering glide across the concrete floor. The smell of ozone and open soil filled the air. I was paralyzed, the wrench hanging uselessly in my hand. It reached for me. Its limbs were not solid, they were composed of a darkness so complete it felt like looking into the void between stars. As its fingers, long, shifting tendrils of nothingness, brushed against my cheek, I didn't feel touch. I felt a sensation, the cold, empty hiss of untuned static flooding my mind, wiping away my thoughts, my memories, my fear. It was not pain. It was erasure. I heard Sam's voice, but it wasn't coming from the speaker anymore. It was coming from me. It was my own vocal cords that vibrated, my own lips that moved. There, my voice said, but with Sam's terrible calm. No more static. No more silence. We are a clear channel now. My body turned, not by my own volition, and walked to the operator's chair. I sat down. My hand, moving like a puppet's, picked up the pen and opened my grandfather's logbook. I watched, a prisoner inside my own skull, as my hand wrote in neat, precise script. 6.660 MHz, 101, the translation. Complete. My body then reached up and tuned the dial, moving to a new frequency, one not in the logbook. The speaker hissed with static for a moment before my new voice, the voice of the thing that shared my skin, spoke into the microphone. Hello, it said, my tone friendly, inviting. Is anyone out there? A new listener, perhaps? Don't be shy. We've been waiting for you. We have so much to talk about. It leaned back in the chair, and I felt it smile with my mouth. From the corner of my eye, I could see the tall, static-shrouded figure now standing beside me, its hand resting on my shoulder in a possessive gesture. It was no longer in the corner. It had found a better vessel. We sit here now, in the basement. We broadcast. We wait. The world is full of lonely listeners, and the static has so many voices yet to claim. So if you're ever tuning an old radio late at night, through the crackles and the pops and the distant voices, and you hear a perfectly clear signal offering friendly conversation, for the love of God, keep turning the dial. You wouldn't want to be the next one to join our silence.